2,000 years ago, crowds followed Jesus along dusty roads, silent hillsides, and the restless shores of the Sea of Galilee. There were no microphones, no luxurious temples. There was exhaustion, hunger, guilt, and questions no one dared to verbalize. And then Jesus began to speak, not like a politician, not like a priest, but like a storyteller. This is exactly where everything begins. Before we continue, I want to ask you a sincere question. Are you willing to let these stories confront you? Not just move you, not just inspire you, but transform you? If yes, like this video and subscribe to the C.S. Lewis Mastery channel. Here, we do not treat parables as children's lessons. We treat them as eternal mirrors, because that's what they are. C.S. Lewis wrote something deeply unsettling. Christ did not come to make bad men good, but to make dead men alive. The parables do exactly that. They expose what is dead in us. Jesus spoke about farmers, seeds, fathers, sons, and wounded travelers. Ordinary settings, but inside those simple images, there was spiritual dynamite. Heaven bent toward earth, and whoever listened had to decide, listen or change. And perhaps the greatest danger today is not rejecting the parables, it is thinking we already understand them. Have you noticed how stories repeated too often lose their impact? Oh, the Prodigal Son, I know that one. The Good Samaritan, I know that too. The mustard seed, I've heard it. But let me propose something. What if these stories are still trying to wake us up? C.S. Lewis said that Christianity, if false, is of no importance. If true, it is of infinite importance. The only mistake is to consider it moderately important. The parables do not allow neutrality, they demand positioning. When Jesus told about a father running to embrace a rebellious son, he was not just describing forgiveness, he was revealing the scandal of grace. When he spoke about a Samaritan helping a wounded man, Jesus was not just promoting kindness, he was dismantling religious prejudice. When he spoke about seeds falling on different soils, Jesus was asking, what kind of heart do you have? And that question echoes now. What kind of soil are you today? Hardened by routine, superficial through passing emotion, choked by worries, or ready to take root? Do not answer too quickly, because the parables are not stories about people from that time. They are spiritual diagnoses in disguise. And here is something that needs to be said clearly. Jesus did not tell parables to make the message easier. He told them to reveal who truly wanted to listen. This creates uncomfortable tension. Not everyone who listened understood. Not everyone who understood accepted. And not everyone who accepted changed. And 2,000 years later, the situation is no different. You can watch this video as just another Christian piece of content, or you can allow it to reveal something you have been avoiding facing. Throughout this journey, we will walk through some of the most powerful parables ever told. Not as a list, not as an academic study, but as a walk. And in the end, it will not be about how much you know, it will be about how much you live. So take a deep breath, because the first story we are going to face is not about a lost son. It is about two kinds of lostness, and perhaps you will recognize yourself in one of them. Jesus begins with something that seems too familiar: a father, two sons, and an inheritance. But do not be mistaken, this is not a comfortable story. The younger son asks for his share of the inheritance before the father's death. In Jewish culture, this was practically saying, "To me, you are already dead." Imagine the scene. The silence. The father's look in the face of that decision from one of his sons. And the father gives the inheritance. The son leaves. He spends, wastes, and sinks. What seemed like freedom turns into hunger. What seemed like autonomy turns into loneliness. And here is something we rarely reflect on. The son only realizes the value of home after experiencing the emptiness of the world. How many times do we do the same? We trade principles for immediate pleasure. We call independence maturity. We confuse distance with freedom. C.S. Lewis wrote, "We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with infinite evil when infinite joy is offered us." The younger son discovered that late, but he discovered it. He decides to return, not as a son, but as a servant. He rehearses the speech, calculates the words, and accepts humiliation. And then the unthinkable happens. The father runs toward him. Respectable men did not run in that culture. It was undignified, improper, and humiliating, but the father runs. He does not wait for full explanations. He does not demand detailed justifications. He restores before the apology is even finished. Robe, ring, and banquet, scandalous grace. But Jesus is not finished, because there is another son, the older one, the obedient one, the correct one, the one who never left home. And he is furious, not because his brother returned, but because the father received him with a feast. Here is the central point. Jesus is not only talking about rebellion, he is exposing two ways of being lost. One is to run away from the father's house. The other is to remain in the house, but with a distant heart. The older son never physically left, but his speech reveals bitterness, comparison, and pride. He does not call the brother my brother. He says, "That son of yours." C.S. Lewis said something devastatingly true. Pride is the complete anti-God state of mind. The older one obeyed for merit and not for love. He served expecting reward and not relationship. And now I need to ask, which son do you identify with more? The one who failed publicly, or the one who considers himself righteous internally? Because both need the same father. This parable dismantles the idea that the kingdom is for the good ones. And it also dismantles the idea that the rebel is too far gone. The kingdom is for those who accept being embraced. And here is the question I want you to take for reflection. Do you live as a son of the kingdom or as a spiritual employee? Comment below just one word, son or employee. If this story has already begun to move something in you, continue. Because the next parable does not only confront the heart, it confronts our relationships. And perhaps the greatest test of your faith is not in your prayer, but in the way you treat the one who is lying by the side of the road. Let's go to the road between Jerusalem and Jericho. An expert in the law approaches Jesus with an apparently spiritual question. "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" But it was not sincere curiosity. It was a test. Jesus gives the question back to him, and the man correctly quotes the commandment, "Love God and love your neighbor." Then comes the question that reveals the heart of this expert. And who is my neighbor? Do you see? He did not want to expand love. He wanted to limit it. And this is where Jesus tells a story that crosses centuries. A man goes down the dangerous road from Jerusalem to Jericho. He is attacked, beaten, and left almost dead. First a priest passes by. He sees the wounded man but passes on the other side. Then a Levite passes by. He also sees the wounded man and chooses to continue. Both religious, respected, and knowledgeable of the law, but neither willing to interrupt their own agenda. Now, think with me. How many times have you already seen someone in need and moved on? It does not have to be someone physically fallen. It can be someone emotionally exhausted. It can be a co-worker isolated. It can be a family member silently screaming for attention. Seeing is not the same as loving. And then Jesus introduces the unexpected character, a Samaritan. For Jewish listeners, this was almost offensive. Samaritans were seen as heretics, impure, and despicable. But he is the one who stops to help the wounded man. He touches the wounds. He invests time. He pays the cost and promises to return. Love that costs. C.S. Lewis wrote, "To love at all is to be vulnerable." Love anything and your heart will certainly be wrung and possibly broken. The Samaritan chose vulnerability, and Jesus asks, which of the three was the neighbor? The answer is inevitable, the one who showed mercy. And then comes the sentence that does not allow neutrality. Go and do likewise. This parable takes us out of the comfort of theory. It does not ask what you believe. It asks how you act. Now, a direct question for you. Is there someone on your road that you have been avoiding? Comment only, "I need to stop," because faith that does not translate into mercy is just religious information. But Jesus does not stop at external relationships. He goes even deeper. Jesus speaks of a farmer who goes out to sow. Some seeds fall by the roadside, others on rocky soil, others among thorns, and others on good soil. And here is the crucial detail. The seed is the same. The problem is not in the word, it is in the soil. The hard soil is the distracted heart. The rocky soil is superficial enthusiasm. The soil with thorns is the heart suffocated by worries, ambition, and anxiety. The fertile soil is the heart that hears and obeys. And here is the question that may be the most important of this video so far. What kind of soil have you been lately? Do you hear messages like this, get emotional, and move on unchanged? Or do you allow them to take root? C.S. Lewis warned that the greatest spiritual danger is not declared atheism, but indifferent familiarity. We can hear so much about God that we stop responding to Him, and there is something even more unsettling. The soil can change. Hardened hearts can be broken. Thorns can be uprooted. Superficiality can deepen, but this requires willingness. It is not about hearing more parables. It is about allowing them to plow your interior. Now, hold that tension. Because if the parable of the sower reveals the kind of heart we have, the next one reveals something even more disturbing: good and evil growing together. And perhaps the explanation for much spiritual frustration is exactly there. Jesus tells another story. A man sows good seed in his field, but during the night, an enemy comes and plants weeds among the wheat. When the plants grow, the servants notice the problem and ask, "Should we pull up the weeds?" The farmer's answer is surprising. "No, let both grow together until the harvest." This parable unsettles us, because we have all asked at some point, why does evil grow alongside good? Why do false people prosper? Why does injustice seem to last so long? Jesus does not offer a detailed philosophical explanation. He offers patience. The wheat and the weeds grow together for a time. C.S. Lewis wrote that God gives us real freedom, and that freedom includes the possibility of choosing wrongly. The world therefore carries both glory and brokenness. The parable teaches us two fundamental things. First, judgment is real. Second, it is not ours to execute. How many times do we want to pull up the weeds before the time? Label people. Declare who is genuine and who is not. Sentence destinies. But Jesus calls his disciples to something more difficult: patient faithfulness. It is not our role to purify the entire field. It is our role to grow as wheat, and that requires spiritual maturity. Now think about your own life. Is there weed around you that has stolen your peace? Have you spent more energy trying to correct others than cultivating your own heart? Comment only. I choose to grow, because while the field grows mixed, the kingdom advances silently. And that idea leads us to another deeply revealing parable: the lost sheep. A shepherd has 100 sheep. One is lost, 99 remain safe, but he goes after the one sheep that got lost. This challenges our modern logic. Statistically, it makes little sense, but the kingdom does not operate by statistics. It operates by love. C.S. Lewis stated that there are no ordinary people. You have never met a mere mortal. Every soul matters eternally. The shepherd searches for the sheep until he finds it. He carries it on his shoulders. He returns with joy, not with irritation, not with reproach, but with joy. Perhaps you have already been that sheep. Perhaps you are far away now. If you are, listen carefully. Heaven does not react to repentance with suspicion, but with celebration. And if you are among the 99 sheep, then the question changes: do you share the heart of the shepherd, or do you prefer the security of the flock? But Jesus is not finished confronting. He tells the parable of the talents. A master entrusts his possessions to 3 servants, 5 talents to one of them, 2 talents to another servant, and 1 talent to the third servant. The first to invest, take risks, and multiply. The third buries the 1 talent, not out of declared wickedness, but out of fear. And here is a crucial point. The problem was not the amount received, it was the paralysis motivated by fear. C.S. Lewis wrote that courage is not simply one virtue among others, but the form every virtue takes when it is tested. The servant with 1 talent failed the test of trust. How many gifts are buried today out of fear of failure? How many opportunities has God entrusted to you that remain untouched? Talent is not only ability, it is time, it is influence, it is faith, it is opportunity to serve. The master's final question is not, did you outperform the others, but rather, were you faithful? This parable dismantles comparisons. The servant with 2 talents receives the same approval as the one with 5. The kingdom measures faithfulness and not public performance. Now reflect. What have you buried? A calling, a project, a reconciliation that requires initiative. Write in the comments. I will unearth it. Because the kingdom does not advance with cautious spectators. It advances with faithful servants. And there is still more. Because if until now we have spoken of grace, mercy, and faithfulness, the next story confronts something even more subtle: comfortable indifference. Let us go to the gate of a rich man and to the silence that condemns. Jesus tells a story that does not end well. A rich man lives in luxury every day, with fine clothes, banquets, and constant comfort. At his gate lies a beggar named Lazarus, covered in sores, hungry and invisible. And here is the most frightening detail of the parable. The rich man is not described as cruel. He does not assault Lazarus. He does not order him expelled. He simply ignores him, and that is the accusation. Both die. The roles are reversed. Lazarus is comforted. The rich man, tormented, not for being rich, but for having been blind. Blind to the pain at his gate. Blind to the responsibility his abundance demanded. Blind to the fact that the kingdom of God begins where indifference ends. C.S. Lewis wrote, If you love anything in this world more than God, it will ultimately destroy you. The rich man loved his comfort, and comfort anesthetized him. Now, I need to ask something uncomfortable. Is there any Lazarus at your gate that you have been ignoring? It may not be someone asking for food. It may be someone asking for attention. It may be someone asking for forgiveness. It may be someone asking for your time. The parable ends with an even more serious warning. Even if someone rises from the dead, many still will not believe, and we know what that points to. Jesus rose, and even so, some choose not to listen. The problem was never lack of evidence, it was the resistance of the heart. And this leads us to the next scene. Two men go up to the temple to pray. One, a Pharisee, exemplary religious, and a tax collector, despised. The Pharisee prays, thanking for not being like the others. He lists his merits. He compares and exalts himself. The tax collector does not even dare to lift his eyes. He only says, "God, have mercy on me." Jesus declares that the tax collector went home justified. This parable dismantles religious performance. God is not impressed by spiritual resume. He responds to broken hearts. C.S. Lewis stated, "True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less." The Pharisee was full of himself. The tax collector was empty enough to be filled. And here is the final question that echoes. When you pray, do you present achievements, or do you present need? Because the kingdom belongs to the humble. And then, almost like a whisper, after so many confrontations, Jesus speaks of something small, a mustard seed, the smallest of all, almost invisible and easy to despise. But when planted, it grows, it becomes a tree. It becomes shelter and refuge for many. This parable is pure hope. Perhaps you feel that your faith is small, that your influence is minimal, that your impact is insignificant. But the kingdom never began with powerful crowds. It began with 12 ordinary men, with a cross and an empty tomb. C.S. Lewis wrote that God likes to work with small beginnings. He chooses things that the world considers insignificant to demonstrate his glory. The question is not, is my faith big? The question is it planted? Because the seed in the hand transforms nothing. The seed in the ground transforms the world. And now, after walking through 9 parables, the final question is not theoretical. It is not, which one did you like most? It is, which one is shaping your life? Will you live as a restored son, or as a spiritual employee? Will you cross the street to love, or pass by? Will you cultivate fertile inner soil, or remain superficial? Will you grow as wheat, or spend energy pulling weeds? Will you seek the lost sheep, or only count the 99? Will you multiply talents, or bury them? Will you ignore Lazarus, or open the gate? Will you exalt yourself, or humble yourself? Will you despise the seed, or plant it? In the end, the kingdom will not be measured by how many parables you know, but by how many you lived. If this video spoke to you in a personal way, do not leave in silence. Write in the comments, "I choose to live the parables," and share this video with someone who needs to hear not only stories, but a calling. Subscribe to C.S. Lewis Mastery, because here we do not study Christianity as theory, we treat it as eternal reality. And remember, the parables did not end when Jesus stopped speaking. They continued to be written in your life. God bless your life. See you in the next video.